Perfect. Thank you, Tony. Thank you.
Um,
And I'm sorry, Stephen and Tony. Go ahead, Stephen. Did you have something else? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to introduce Tony. Tony and I were just talking earlier, and I know many of you came in from the Eventbrite description. You don't really know who he is, but let me just tell you, Tony has so much experience, not just talking about it, but he's actually experienced it himself, being a serial entrepreneur, a veteran, a minority founder, someone who's been in that ecosystem, been in the shoes of people who want to do the same things that he has done. And it's just amazing, his journey. And I think with that, I can let Tony talk a little bit more about himself.
Can I say one thing though?
Yep, go ahead.
Congratulations. He just had first grandbaby, and congratulations.
Congratulations,
so
Tony.
All right, Tony, take it away. Take it away.
I hope those of you that are parents don't have to wait as long as my wife and I. We were married 45 years next week, and having our first grandchild. So you talk about patience, we have it. Well, it's glad to be here today, and I know all of you have a number of backgrounds. I'll quickly just give you mine. I raised in a small town here in Lemoore, California, which is 40 miles south of Fresno. My family came here in 2006. My family came here in 1906, and we've been here ever since. And I went to school here, graduated from high school here in Lemoore, joined the Army, ended up in the Special Forces, came back from Vietnam, got there in 65, and completed all my services and came home in late 1968. And to be honest with you, as a Latino that was raised working in the fields and from a small community, graduated from high school, the high school degree, it was a normal thing that where I was headed was to the fields or to work on a small ranch that my dad had. But I went to a counselor at my high school and introduced me to community college, the kind of silent education where everybody starts from zero. And it was perfect for me, and it launched my career. And then it all came alive because an instructor there named Rodney, Professor Dr. Rodney Fitch, lit the entrepreneurial spirit in me, and it went on to never stop. I, since 1970, have not spent 1 year that I have not been as a student myself, either getting a degree or taking certifications. And so I continually do that. And I just want you to know that I've walked in the shoes of many of you. And I had an opportunity of running the second largest food company in the world out of London, doing $14 billion a year across the world. I worked for Arnold Schwarzenegger on the CalPERS board as a judge for the state of California in hazardous waste lawsuits, as an economist for the high-speed rail, as a professor. I've done 21 startups of my own. And today I continue as a realtor, as an auditor, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And the reason I'm saying that is that we are all on the same level field: male, female, minority, veteran. But what we're going to talk about today, and I understand from Stephen that Tanya expresses this all the time, it doesn't work unless you take advantage of it. If you have the qualifications and the criteria we're going to talk about here, then you must do something about that. And so I am certified, and we're going to talk about that and share some ideas. I do want to say this up front: nothing that I am saying today should be considered to be legal advice or tax advice. I am a professor of economics and a professor of law, business law. And I am a fiduciary, both private and public. But I will tell you that any of the choices that you make, you should consult with your accountant, your attorney, or, believe it or not, even though I'm a law professor and an organizational professor, all the many LLCs that I own now have all been set up by LegalZoom. So I'm a believer in LegalZoom. It saves you some money and it works well. And we'll talk about that.
Me
So,
too. Me too.
yeah,
I'm glad to hear it.
yeah, no, it works well. And the good old network, we'll talk about that a little bit. So I was going to, should I just go ahead and share a screen?
Yeah. Whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and share your screen. Yep.
Okay, let's get into this thing.
Beautiful.
Okay, now, what we want to talk about today is it's primarily for veterans, but I chose to expand it more than that because since I have you as a captured audience. So we're going to talk about veterans, opportunities, minorities, and small businesses. There are actually 5 categories that I'm going to talk about. And I consult with a lot of the veterans. I am, like I say, an Army veteran myself. I use them all. I have veterans, especially the female veterans, that qualify sometimes in 5 categories. And you'll see that in a little bit. And I have included my email address and my phone number. And so any student, veteran, or otherwise that wants to contact me at any time, I mentor students all over the world free. And so if you ever need to contact me and ask me a question or opinion, you feel free, please, to do that. Okay. In the world of entrepreneurship, as I am a professor also of entrepreneurship, and I run the Entrepreneurship Club here at West Hills College. So one of the first things that need to be determined by you is, are you after to be an entrepreneurship or an entrepreneurship? As you know, in entrepreneurship, the benefits, you run your own company with products or services, be your own boss, reap all the successes of your own account, the ability to be free and unencumbered by others managing you. But then I put in red down there, and take all the risk. It is much riskier to sign the front of the check than it is the back of it, as they say. On the other hand, you may choose to be an entrepreneur within an organization. And a lot of people that have worked for me as interns, that's really what they are. They're an intern entrepreneur working within my companies, learning how to do it, and then they go out on their own. And any good boss or manager that doesn't believe that you could work for them a few years and then know you're going to go out and launch on your own, and should cultivate that. If they're not that way, you're working for the wrong company. So if you're an entrepreneur within a company, you have less risks. You're able to leverage the financial and knowledge resources by an established company, flexibility to take your acquired knowledge and start your own company when you're ready. And then in red, do not get to share in the equity growth. There are caveats. Sometimes that does happen with stock options and other things, but typically not in small entrepreneurial companies we're talking about. And like I say, I've done 21 of them myself, startups. Organizational makeup to maximize this. And many of you in your classes and practical knowledge already know this, but I wanted to touch base, especially by California law. A sole proprietorship, as you know, is easy to set up. You're the boss. All the risk is on you. Can a married couple in California be a sole proprietorship? Yes. Can 2 amigos or 2 amigas be a sole proprietorship? No. Typically, if you and your buddy are going to form something, you're going to form a general partnership. Typically, I'm not going to go into the difference between general and limited, but let's just stick with general partnership, where 2 of you decide to form a business. So able to bring in shared capital. It's good to bring a partner sometimes, and the power of shared knowledge. But again, I put in red here, all partners are at risk for each other personally. One of you does something gets in an accident or does something, the partnership is at risk. So you need to know that. You have to insure for that. The organizational structure, of course, that I recommend is the limited liability company, which you guys know is an LLC, Community Property Opportunities in California. I'm going to talk about that. When you form an LLC, the difference between a partnership and a corporation, for example, in a partnership, any profits or losses are yours. You carry the full burden of liability. Whereas if you form what we call a C Corp, a regular corporation, the liability can only be against the assets of the corporation. The exception would be, of course, if there was fraud. The problem with corporations is it's double taxation. There's taxation at the corporate level. You always hear reduce the corporate taxes. And then the only way you can get money out of a corporation is then you have to take a dividend draw. So now it's taxed at the corporate level, it's taxed at the individual level. So it's double taxation. With a limited liability company, an LLC, you have the liability protection where the liability are the assets of the LLC, but any profit or losses that the LLC makes drop to you as an individual. So it's only taxed one time. So in my opinion, it's kind of a no-brainer nowadays. My wife and I, all of our businesses are LLCs, okay? And the reason, as we go on, that's going to be important, the reason I put Community Property Opportunities in California, to be qualified, as we're going to talk about here in a second, as a veteran, minority, woman-owned, Native American business, that LLC or that company, your venture, must be 51% owned by the veteran, the minority, the small business, or the woman. So let's say that you're married, and this could be the wife's business or the husband's business or whatever the format is. When you structure your LLC, you want to structure it so the managing and qualified minority or veteran is the managing member at 51% of the ownership, and the other one is 49. As my wife wanted me to share, she said, "Oh, what do you mean? You're going to be 51% owner, I'm going to be 49% owner." Until it was explained by me, my accountant, and adjoining attorneys that the structure is that way. But at the end of the year, because of community property laws in California, it doesn't matter. It all comes down to you are taxed as a married couple. So, and you can always go over that with your accountant. But like I say, mine all operate that way. So it's tested. And I pick up many, many jobs across the United States as a consultant because I qualify as a 51% owner manager, as a veteran, as a Latino, and small business. And I'll explain what those are in a moment. So just remember, because you might have a spouse or somebody who wants to call me or call attorney. I'll give you my opinion, then they can call attorney to let you know it's okay. At the end, it works out. And I could always talk to you that on a private basis.
Looks like we have a question in chat. How does an SCorp just differ from an LLC?
Yeah, the SCorps are pretty much not used anymore. In my opinion, they're pretty much outdated. They were good at a time before the LLCs were developed. I rarely see them used anymore. They are. There's limits in the amount of people that can be part of them. And I would recommend when you get ready for that decision, you just go on your browser and look up, for example, specifically, so we don't take too much time here, is just put the difference between an SCorp and an LLC, and you'll see that an SCorps were primarily designed when they first started for farmers, because farmers did not want to be C Corps because of the double taxation. But the LLCs are much more flexible in that the members of the LLC are members. They're not stockholders. And like I say, I would suggest you just put that up in the browser and it makes sense. But you would find that, in my opinion, it's a no-brainer choice nowadays. It should be LLCs. You'll see most accounting firms today, most legal firms, and most startups that I know of are all LLCs. Rarely do I ever see an SCorp anymore.
There's a follow-up question that asks, there's a thing that says startups should go as SCorp, especially if they're planning to open their capital. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, and the reason that someone would say that is because if they want to draw capital themselves, it's easier to put capital to an S-corp because of the stock versus an LLC. I'm not sure, I haven't checked it recently, but I believe the total amount of members in an LLC is 16. And so that's more than enough members to draw money into the organization. And sometimes if you were at the beginning of doing a startup and you're really not functioning yet, because like when I go to Google every year to their major event, there'll be 400 to 600 entrepreneurs starting up their companies. If they're in the startup stage, usually they're either sole proprietorships or general partnerships until they actually go out and do business. Most of those that are functioning that I've looked at are all LLCs. But that's a good business question. I think that's another good search engine question. The difference between adding capital, I've never really had to go out and attract much capital in my startups. I will say one thing about that. Many entrepreneurs that want to start other companies, the fear that they have is the ability to attract capital. I do want to say this, and I firmly believe this. If you have a good idea, capital is your least problem. Capital flows to good ideas. There's more reserve capital on the sidelines, especially now, than probably in history. But it comes down to is the idea. And remember a basic for all entrepreneurs. You can only fulfill needs. You can't create them. Most startups fail because entrepreneurs are trying to create a need that does not exist. Steve Jobs is the only person that I've ever heard stand up in front of an audience that disputed that and said, I'll tell you what you need. And maybe it worked for Apple. And the reason it worked for Apple, though, in my opinion, is they were telling you why they were doing something, not how they were doing something. So capital will come to you if the idea is good. As far as the structure to address capital, I still recommend the LLC. I'm putting these things down too. But whoever made that question, I'd love to get back to you and say if it makes a difference, depending on where you are drawing your money from. And hopefully in the questions later, we can talk about that, is because where you're going to get your capital. Keep in mind, when I said on CalPERS, we're a $360 billion company, we would not look at entrepreneurs and startups. And then there's venture capitalists that look for startups, of course. And then we're going to talk about other sources, especially for veterans. But typically it's going to be angel investors or family offices that are going to be funding startup companies. And maybe we can talk specifically about that on the end. I'll give you some ideas. So for you veterans, I want to recommend if you are a veteran like I am, and was 13 years, both active and reserves, I came out of there having great organizational skills. So there is an organization called the Project Management Institute, and you can get certified as a project manager, a PPM or a CAPM, CPAM, which is the entry level. They have a new program where they'll give discounts to the military the PPM requires a lot of hours. I have about 30,000 hours in project management, but you can get a certification as a project manager without experience, especially if you are a veteran, because if you are a veteran, you already have project management skills. It's just built into what we are. So you can go to that email address there and look it up. There are chapters in San Diego, Fresno, all over. I am a member of the chapter in Fresno. So, and our school teaches project management. A lot of schools do that. The second one, the veteran-owned small business. The U.S. Department of Veterans promotes the maximum utilization of veteran-owned small businesses. You need to visit that site, see what they offer. I help a lot of veterans do their startup businesses. We have a veterans office here in Kings County. I was a Kings County elected official for many years and helped develop the veterans office here, and they are great. And most community colleges has a veterans representative at their campus. And then the Office of Veterans Small Business Development are devoted exclusively to promoting veterans entrepreneurs. They make great entrepreneurs, and I like them as entrepreneurs in my company. When I have a choice, if I can hire a veteran, to be honest with you, I want a veteran. And one of the reasons I shop at Lowe's so much is they hire more veterans than any major company in the United States. And they found out the same thing, is they like the entrepreneurial spirit and organizational skills of veterans. And then lastly, there, the SBA Veterans Entrepreneurship Act of 2015 reduces the upfront borrowing fee to $0 for eligible veterans and military spouses for SBA express loans up to $350,000. So for you veterans, best place to get your answers. Veterans offices in your county, because usually every county has one, at your school, online. Like I say, I'm spoiled. In Kings County, we have a remarkable veterans office, much like San Diego, where you have military bases down there. We have the Lemoore Naval Air Station here. So our veterans office is very, very active, both at our school.
And Tony,
Yeah.
can I say something here? Just here at San Diego Mesa College, we do have a veterans office, and we actually have a project management certificate through our continuing education, which is free for veterans. If you have the veterans certification, you only have to do, just like you said, a limited amount of additional education to get that certification. And we have another workshop coming up about that here, I believe, next week on the project management side. So
Yeah, I was going to say, if you are a veteran and you could take a little time and get the CAPM, the CPAM through the Project Management Institute, they'll give you a discount to do that. That is a big deal. Put that on your resume. That's a big deal. That tells the world you have organizational skills.
Right.
Okay. Small businesses, minorities, the Office of Small Business and the DVB services, which I use, is a state certifying agency that administers the small business for the purpose of public works. The reason this is important, I'll just share my own experience. After I came off the CalPERS board in 2011, the high-speed rail was starting to kick up, and they were looking for a lead economist to do a 2-year study here in the San Joaquin Valley. And the criteria was it needed to be somebody that was small business, minority, and veteran if possible, or at least 2 out of the 3. I was all 3. I got the contract. It was a very large contract for 2 years. I feel that I was qualified as an economist, but it floated me to the top. So they had to look at my resume at the top. So I can tell you as a real life example, how much that was worth to me and my wife, because now I get a lot of consulting contracts. I actually get contacted all the time across the United States by, like I mentioned earlier, when we started, from large consulting firms that are trying to get a job, but the criteria requires that the lead person for the project is minority or veteran, woman, small business. And And 95% of the time, I get those contracts because I do fiduciary audits for pensions across the United States. And just so you know, when we talk about qualifying as a small business in California, that's most of you, I'm going to guess everybody here qualifies, because as long as you're doing less than $10 million in business, which I sadly am still doing less than $10 million a year in business, I am a small business and will be for the rest of my life. I'm 74. I figure I got 30 more years to work, so maybe I'll make it at the end of 30. The state offices for minority and women business enterprises. State agencies provide technical and financial assistance to minority-owned businesses, so you can compete more successfully for federal, state, and local government contracts. I helped a woman-owned business recently get a large contract because I got her certified 2 years ago when she was in my class. She just got a large contract out of the Lemoore Naval Air Station with the federal government because she was a certified woman-owned enterprise, 51% owned and managed in her particular case. And it changed the life of their family because of the contract. Instead of giving that contract, because the other bidders in that deal were major companies throughout the United States. And here, this very successful woman, small business here in Lemoore, ended up with a contract, in my opinion, as it should be. Certification opens the door to targeted government contract opportunities, learning how to be certified minority-owned businesses. Again, we do it over and over again in this area just because there's so many opportunities with the post office, with the state governments, with the prison systems, with the federal government. But you got to do the work. You have to get certified and stay certified. Okay, women-owned business specifically. Once you have been awarded a women-owned small business certification, there are several benefits that your business will begin to receive. Limited competition by gaining access, like I was just talking about, the lady that just got a very large, close to $1 million contract. Increased visibility in the government marketplace, marketing advantages through government exposure and logo use. Many state, city, and municipal government agencies use this all the time. It's very important that they have mandates, just like the high-speed rail had a mandate to hire someone like that. Many third-party certifiers host marketing events that your business will receive information to attend. You open that door and it flows, and you have to be ready to take advantage of it. Well, eligibility ranges based on circumstances. To be eligible for a woman-owned small business program, your business must be a small business doing less than $10 million a year, be at least 51% owned and controlled by women who are US citizens. And keep in mind, even if you're married, it works. Like the formula I showed you how to make it work. And have a woman manage day-to-day operations and make long-term decisions. In my family, and sometimes I'm the 51% owner, depending on the business, and the other times my wife is. My wife is a woman, and she's also a Native American. We're going to talk about in a moment. Native Americans. The reason I request people to look at this, don't assume that you're not. My wife and my daughters are all certified Native Americans by the federal government. They actually carried an ID card. They're members of the Choctaw tribe. And so you need to do a search. Like I say, I have a young lady, veteran, that I got qualified, I helped her get qualified in all 5 categories: woman, veteran, small business, Latina, and found out that her family was on the Native rolls. And so she got her father enrolled, and she's enrolled now. So she's a federally recognized member of the Cherokee tribe. There was a Dawes Act, and if you are a Native American or have ancestry in Native American, you can go read on the Dawes Indian, about the Dawes Indian rolls in 1906. your family had to get enrolled, and you can do a quick search to see if you have your grandparents or your ancestors are enrolled, and you should, if you can, take advantage of that. There are many opportunities for health, business, education. My children, part of their education was paid for by the Choctaw tribe. So I recommend that you check that out. I will tell you this, my wife would tell you that if she's sitting here, when you go in and read the information on the Dawes Indian Rolls and the Act of 1898 and then 1906, it will make you angry if you're a Native American. How you got this right, but it's just the way people were treated in those days. But now's today. So if you check it out, you can't go take a blood test or a DNA test and say that I'm part Native American and get, you could be 80% Native American, but if your family is not on the rolls, then you wouldn't qualify as a Native American as far as the federal government is concerned. You may be by a specific tribe, but check it out. It's just, why not? So in conclusion, a couple of things. I think you choose if one wants to be an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur, and both work well. I've been an entrepreneur and I've been an entrepreneur. When I was a CEO for the publicly traded, I ran like I say, second largest food company in the world out of London, doing $14 billion a year. And I learned a lot as their CEO, got a little stock. That's one of those deals I was telling you about, the stock. But then I carried that. I left there in 1989 and used that to develop a lot of my own businesses. And then choose your business organization structure that works, the sole proprietorship, partnership, LLC, so on. And then get qualified and get certified. Do the paperwork, get it done. Regardless if you're going to work for somebody or start your own company, it only works if you have the paperwork. And then seek opportunities, because they shall flow your way, because people want people with those types of qualifications. And they need people like that. And specifically you veterans out there, you already paid the price of learning and showing up and the service that you gave. So please take advantage of it. All right. With that, Stephen, I'm going to stop sharing. Then we'll do questions. Does that sound right?
Sounds
Sounds
right.
good.
Wonderful.
Okay. All right. We're back.
Yep. We actually had one question from earlier. Someone asked, can I have employees as an LLC, or am I limited to paying independent contractors only?
No, great question. First of all, LLCs can have 10,000 employees if you want. There's no limit to employees. Keep in mind, the independent contractor rule will get you more in trouble than anything you could possibly think of. I'm glad you asked that question. Be careful. If you form a little company and someone's working at your LLC, your office, and you want to save workman's comp and you want to save Social Security and you want to save, so you hire them as an independent contractor, you're going to get nailed by the IRS, because IRS says if they're working at your place of business under your supervision, using your equipment, they are an employee. They are not a subcontractor. So LLC is the same as a sole proprietorship or same as a partnership when it comes to hiring, firing, benefits. The requirements, there's no difference. The only thing that it really is giving you, which is a big thing, is the liability protection. If you are a sole proprietorship or a partnership and somebody's driving one of your trucks and runs into somebody and hurts somebody or worse, they will sue you as an individual and your company, and they can take any and all of your assets, personal and otherwise. If it's a corporation or if it's an LLC, it's subject to typically your insurance money and the assets of the LLC and the corporation, but not your personal assets, unless there's negligence or fraud, of course. But no limits to That's the reason you'll see most startups are typically or LLCs for that protection. And for a while, some people will start off, and I just want to say that some people will start off as just a sole proprietorship because you have very little risk. And then as soon as it starts to kick in, starting to do well, then they'll convert it to an LLC, and you can do that at any time.
In fact, that's what I would recommend. You don't want to go spending the money to
No,
to either incorporate or LLC until you're ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, good questions. Good questions. Yeah.
until you know if it's going to go or not. You just start off and you watch it. Be careful of promises that you make,
Yeah.
because you are liable for promises. So,
And then I see a question in the chat from Martin about forming an LLC in California or some other state. So for and I'm not going to answer that. I'm sorry. Tony, go ahead. It's hard when you're
No,
a teacher, right? You always want to just talk.
yeah,
But
no,
go
and
ahead.
I'll give you an example. I currently represent the largest pension fund in Finland for all of their investments in real estate in the United States. And they are formed as a SCorp in Delaware because of taxation.
Right.
But when it comes to an LLC, if your place of business is in California, typically your LLC. LLCs are state organizations.
Mhm.
So if you're doing business in California, you would normally form and operate a state LLC.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed. We'll see California LLCs and Delaware C Corps. So I see another question here from Philippe. Philippe, do you have a?
Yeah, that was actually the question. So actually, I read yesterday that when you open your startup in another state, actually, if you operate in California, you need to have a foreign LLC. Is that right, Tony? So is that the reason that you say that it's better to open the startup in California if you are doing business in California rather than in another state?
Yeah. Again, I don't want this to be a legal answer, but this is a business answer I'm saying, is that if you are operating business, if your main business is in California and you are forming an LLC, I will tell you, I'm pretty sure that the LLC has to be formed in the state of California.
It does.
Cannot be formed
It does.
outside. But you touched on something that I'm glad I want to comment. If you are a C Corp, and none of you are going to form corporations, eventually, if you do a corporation or go public and it grows big enough, then they're corporations, right? McDonald's is a public corporations. Then even if it's your corporations, typically you would have to be an employee of that corporation to get paid a salary. In LLCs, you can draw money out on a monthly basis, just like a partnership. You are not an employee. And that is a big benefit. Keep in mind, if you're a sole proprietorship and you need $1,000 a month, you just take $1,000 a month of the company, they put it as a draw. If you are a partner and you take off $1,000 a month, it's a partner's draw. If it's an LLC, you can also take a draw and it comes off of your member's draw. You do not have to be an employee because that saves you money. You don't want to be an employee of your own company and be paying workman's comp and the rest of the added-on expenses.
So we said a couple more questions.
In relation to that, do you need an SCorp to put yourself on salary?
No.
That's
No.
a question from the chat.
No, yeah. Let me ask you the question. Why would you want to put yourself on salary? Are you saying, or do you have to be on salary?
So I don't know, Stephen, who asked that question?
It was James. James, if you want to clarify, go ahead and unmute yourself if you want to.
If you're able to.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like he's able to. I don't think.
Okay.
He can
All right.
Mhm.
First of all, you never want to be, in my opinion, you never want to be an employee of your own company unless you have to be, because now you have to pay in Social Security, you have to pay in workman's comp, you have to pay in all those expenses. It's your company. You don't want to do that.
Mhm.
But if you're a C Corp, then you have to be an employee because the corporation is an entity of its own. So the real question is here that needs to be answered after we get off, I guess, is because I haven't messed with SCorps in 20 years because they're outdated as far as I'm concerned. Does an SCorp require employees? It never used to, but I don't know if it does or not.
No, it does not. It does not.
Okay, it does not.
Mhm.
So in an LLC, you don't have to be an employee, don't want to be an employee. But if you form a regular C Corp, like I am the fiduciary board member on Tamina Homes out of Delaware. And I'm on there as a board member, so I'm not an employee. But if I was an employee, even if I own the company, I'd have to pay into employee expenses. So you don't want to be an employee. And with an LLC, you do not have to be.
And there's a question here from Nicholas, who's asking about the process of starting an LLC and wants to know if it's different for different types of businesses.
You're going to love this. For a fraction of the cost to form an LLC. First of all, LegalZoom, I really love LegalZoom. Keep in mind, I went through all those years of going to law school and teaching law, and I still let them do all the work. Because you can go on into LegalZoom and just ask the question. You don't have to pay them anything. Say, I want to form an LLC. When you form an LLC, they categorize what type of business you are in, because your LLC is by use and type of business. It will still be an LLC, but it'd be an LLC for services, or it'd be LLC for product sales. So yes, when you form an LLC, it does that, but it's very flexible. And if you go in without cost to LegalZoom, say, I'm thinking about doing this, what kind I want to be, and tell me about LLC and what kind of structure. But that's one of the things that LegalZoom does for you. They help you decide the industry you're in. And like Tanya said earlier, that's kind of probably the second or the third step. I own a lot of patents myself.
Yeah.
And many times, like when I'm starting a company, I've always typically always started them as a sole proprietor.
Me too.
With my wife. But now that I'm a mature business person, I don't go into a business unless I know it's going to work. So I immediately started with an LLC because I can't take the risk of liability.
Sure. Yeah. If you have enough assets that you need to protect, right?
The other thing I want to tell, I don't want to miss this one, Tanya. Make sure you share that with your students in the future. One of the things is when you get started, you need errors and omissions policy. And if you go to a regular insurance company, it's expensive. And I found this little nationwide company. It's a fraction of the cost. And I'm going to
Lemon. Which one is it?
I can't remember which one it is. I've been working on it. Is
it online? Is it Lemon Tree or Lemon something?
It's one of those, but it's online and it's 5-star rated. And one of the companies I was just forming, my insurance company wanted $2,700 a year, and I got it from these guys for $40 a month.
See, I know. I also switched my, insurance used to be so expensive. And now with all these online, and they're good, right? They're good.
No, they're great. That's the reason you students and you entrepreneurs, as you get started, this is probably the most precious nugget that I can pass on to you after all these years of experience. Never think that when we talk, not the internet, so I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the network of people. Everyone thinks that Tanya has her network. I have my network, and I work for Schwarzenegger and I worked in Sacramento. So how could you as an entrepreneur ever be part of that network? I'm going to tell you something, guys. There's only one network in the world, one big network, and you just find your plugins. Once you know somebody, now that you know me, and you say, look, I want to do this, and you connect. So don't ever think that there's isolated networks. It's just one big one, and you find your ways through.
What a nice way to look at it. I love that. I love that. Yeah, I never thought of it that way, Tony.
People that are successful, and I'm not saying wealthy, I'm saying people that are successful. Now, maybe that goes together or not, want to share.
Yes. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Want to share.
Yep.
I mean, you think of some of the wealthiest people in the world that you can think of, they want to share how they got it, their success. And you just need to find your way into those networks. And they may not always have the answers, but they'll tell you where to look.
We've
Right.
seen that so much here at the Rec Innovation Lab at our incubator here at Miramar. I mean, don't you guys agree? I mean, people just want to help.
Yeah.
They want you to succeed. And boy, yeah, I've seen it time and again. I just love it. 100%. Yeah. All right.
I think,
So go ahead.
John, I think you had a question.
Oh yeah, sorry, John.
Yes. First thing I want to say, thank you for your service. I'm currently active duty myself right now. So my question was, if I now have a sole proprietor, and if I add my wife on, now I'm veteran minority, but my wife is minority female. Who would I put the 51% to kind of help benefit the business?
So
I don't know. Could you hear what he said there, Tony?
I think I got it. Depends on the business, and I'll give an example. I have a veteran that I'm helping right now start a restaurant business here in Lemoore, and his wife knows more about the restaurant business than he does, but the 51% ownership needs to be by one or the other, because he's a veteran, he's small business, so she would qualify woman, small business. He would qualify small business and veteran. So in their particular case, they're gonna work it together, but they chose that he would be the 51% owner and be the manager. So I usually tell people with that question, who's gonna manage? If you're both equally qualified, who would pass this test of management? That's the person that should be the 51% owner.
The day-to-day operations test.
And be careful, depending on what state you're in, about what their
With the married
community
right.
property laws are.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Here in California, we have really great community
It's a
property.
no-brainer. Yeah. And that way neither spouse has to worry about it. You'd be more worried about that you truly are the manager. In case it's ever tested, you could pass that test.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Someone asked me about what I thought about LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
I think LinkedIn is good, but I'll be honest with you, we are inundated with so many scam artists today that I'm almost not even accepting anyone. I think I have 800 people I almost don't accept anyone anymore unless I can verify for a fact who they are.
Right. I stopped accepting them unless they have a note, like put a little note and I say, oh, I know that person from this or from that. Yeah. Yeah. So I see there's, oh, sorry, go ahead. Stephen.
No, I was going to say my email gets attacked 6 or 8 times a day because MSN got hacked.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you are getting that on your emails where they tell you they're going to close down your email and the whole bit. That's block it. It's
delete it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's junk. Yeah.
Yeah.
Philippe had another question. Philippe?
Yeah. So, Tony, I recently heard that every LLC needs to pay $800 per year. And also, I think that in San Francisco, they are gonna not charge the startups or the companies. But I'd like to know from you, what is the status of this now?
Yeah. Yes. To be honest with you, I just filed my extensions on about 20 LLCs. And yes, did I pay $800 a year for each of them? Yes. Yep. And why do they charge $800? $800 of fee is the minimum fee to maintain that LLC in the state of California. It is deductible off your federal taxes.
And Tony, there is one little thing though, and I think this is what Philippe is talking about. If you filed for LLC for the first time ever in 2019, 20, or 21, they're waiving the $800 fee this year. But it normally doesn't happen. I pay every single year.
Yeah, I just
$800 each.
Paid all of mine out. And to be honest, for the privilege that it gives me, it's worth it because think about this. Here's the way I could say, that's a great question, by the way. What's his name? Philippe? Great question, Philippe. Look, I could be a sole proprietorship and pay $6,000 a year in liability insurance, or I could be an LLC, have the protection of an LLC and pay $800 a year. And now I only need a $1,500 a year liability policy.
Exactly.
LLCs just make so much sense. And like I say, but again, Tanya's right on target. Until she works with students, then we're getting started. At first, we start to keep our costs down. Tanya and I both walk in those shoes. We have LLCs.
Yep.
So you might progress from a sole proprietorship to a partnership to an LLC. And you do that when you're ready. But at the time, if your company takes off and does well, the $800 a year that you pay is nothing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But just to have an LLC sitting around and pay $800 a year,
Don't do it.
don't
Yeah.
do it.
Wait as long as you can. Wait as long as you can.
One of the things that I heavily suggest, because I'm also a real estate broker and I protect myself with my name and stuff. If you are going to form a company and eventually you're going to have an LLC and all that, is get your domain locked in.
Yes.
That's very important. Get your domain locked in, buy that cheap long before you do the LLC, because then you can modify it, but get your domain locked in with GoDaddy or whoever you're going to do it with.
Yeah, that's an inexpensive, safety. And I see, yes, Myra had a question about finding out about the waiver. I'm not sure the exact website, but I'm sure just type it in online. And I'm sure it'll come up.
I'm going to look that up
Google
too, because I
Yeah.
need to know. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a new one. Yeah. So, all right. Well, we have maybe time for maybe one more question. Is there any other quick questions that we have? Yes. So Joanna has a question.
Hi, good morning or afternoon. My question is, my husband and I are starting a small business, but we recently were approached by a friend and he is willing to invest with us.
Okay.
So that changes our sole proprietorship to an LLC. However, how would we legally make it fair if he's willing to put in as much as we are into starting the business?
So it's not just, sorry, go ahead. Tony, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. You can tell we both come from the same.
Right.
Well, first of all, if you're a sole proprietorship and you have somebody that wants to put money into the company, you don't have to go to an LLC yet. Might not be time. Go to a limited partnership.
Okay.
Where you are the general partner. That person is the limited partner. And here's why. The general partner is in control of management, and you do not have to be equal partners.
Okay.
That the limited partner, because what a limited partner we're concerned about, they want to put money in and they want to return, but they're concerned about liability. That's something that you might do. So if you form a limited partnership, they are only responsible for the liability of the amount of their contribution to the partnership.
Okay.
And that's better for you. You keep control of the company, and then you can always convert that later on to an LLC, or, if there's an off ramp. If you watch Shark Tank, for example, even in our little small companies, our investors typically want a return, and the general partner wants an off ramp to get rid of that limited partner when they no longer need them or not. So yeah, you wouldn't have to go to an LLC. I would think in almost every case, if it's a small company, I would just do a limited partnership. And by the way, guys, LegalZoom does that. And you would be shocked how creative you can be on yourself. You can write a lot of agreements yourself. You can go online. Keep in mind, in business law, a contract that goes past 1 year must be in writing. So if you're going to have a general partnership or a limited partnership that's going to go beyond 1 year, you put it in writing and both of you sign, both of you agree, and you both sign. You have a legal document, right? You've agreed to that. But yeah, consider a limited partnership there where they're in for the money only, because they're not going to, it's my understanding, Joanna, they're not going to participate in the working of the business.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, and that's another thing, is that he said he would be willing to help us and participate in the business. Like he wants to manage the website and stuff like that.
The one thing I want to make you all aware of, if someone comes in and says, look, I'll put $20,000 in your company, but I only want to be liable for my investment. I don't want to be liable if you run into somebody or do something. And then, but they do have bonds. They're down there working in the business, they're doing things. And then there's an accident and somebody finds out, in fact, they were involved, then they are not protected under the limited liability of a limited contract partnership. So
I have to say something too. I was wrong on the 2020. It's when the bill was originally going through, it was going to be 1920. It was 2021. So if I stand corrected. I apologize. If you did form your LLC in 2020, they're not going to honor that until 2021. So if you formed it in
So-
2021,
Tanya, is it a new LLC?
it is.
It's
And
not
you-
an existing. You and I are not exempt. In other
no,
words,
we're not. No, we still have to pay ours. Yeah.
excise and all, but
Yeah. We're not exempt.
I want to see if I
Unfortunately.
wanted to claw it back or not.
I know. Yeah. No, unfortunately.
You know,
So
One
go
of
ahead.
the things that, I know you got to go, but
no.
keep in mind, and this is not political at all. I'm going to talk Trump administration when they passed the 1.9 trillion tax when he first got into office in Senate.
Mhm.
One of the things that we as Californians lost is we used to be able to have unlimited deductions of state tax expenses from our federal taxes.
Yep.
Now we're limited to $10,000.
Mhm.
So you got to kind of plan around that. But the $800 is deductible as
It is.
your federal income taxes. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. So it looks like we're just about out of time, but I want to make sure if any of you still have questions and want to stick around, you're more than welcome to do that. But I know a lot of you've got to get going, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Tony, do you want to take us out? Is there anything you want to end with?
No, we're just going to do a little research just for my own, because I am going to do, as soon as we get off the line, as a good professor would, I'm going to do a little sidebar analysis between SCorp and LLC. And like I said, I just haven't done much work with SCorps anymore. That was one question we had. You talked about the $800 one. What was we had one third thing that I couldn't really answer the way I wanted to. You don't have to be an employee. We answered all that. You're going to provide all those links and information for everybody. But I guess, yeah,
Go ahead.
but I would close this. And I know, Tanya, I can tell you do the same thing. Guys, ladies and gentlemen, act, do it. The limits of what you can do and what's out there, people are just begging for people like you. I mean, we old guys and younger ladies like Tanya are looking for young, bright minds and to help you, major companies and smaller companies are looking, and internships are great. I place a lot of people in internships. So you just, the Nike theory truly works, guys. Just do it. If you're ethical, if you're smart and you're honest, the limit of what you can do has none.
Yeah.
There is no ceiling. So do it.
I love it. Thank you, Tony. Thank you so much. My mantra is perfection is the enemy of progress. Don't let it stay perfect in your brain. Just get out there and do it. Just do it. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just do it. I love that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And thank you everyone for being here. We'll see you again very soon. If you want to stick around and chat, we'll stick around for a little bit longer, but I'll say goodbye to most of you now. Bye, everyone.
See you guys.
Hey, Tony. It's
Hi,
Rochelle.
Rochelle. I was
So
wondering
glad
if
to
you
get
would
to
come.
see you. I've been here